Congress has sent a bill to the president's desk in support of the Hong Kong protesters, but Trump is currently locked in trade negotiations with Beijing. So should he sign the bill and send a strong message to Xi Jinping? Joining me on the very latest is senior policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation's Asian Studies Center. Olivia Enos is back. Olivia, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me back, Kennedy.
So the president is taking credit for saving lives in Hong Kong. He says that his negotiations with Beijing are what's keeping the People's Liberation Army from rolling in with tanks and murdering those protesters. Is he right?
I mean, Hong Kongers obviously took to the polls this weekend, and they made it clear they want reform, and they don't just want reform, they want democracy. It's been this unbelievable swell of political emotion and momentum that has come from the Hong Kong people themselves that has really made it possible for these protests to keep on going. I think that the U.S. in general, and certainly Congress, has made it clear that they're listening to the Hong Kong people, that they hear them.
Yeah.
And the American people themselves are very supportive of the Hong Kongers' desire for freedom, and especially when they carry that out in a peaceful way. And I think we need to see the president with stronger rhetoric demonstrating American support for those who would seek freedom. More support.
That's a really good point, because the way Beijing and Chinese state-run newspapers have framed everything is these protests are just a small group of bad actors. They have labeled them terrorists, but the vote obviously says that the majority of people living there are pro-democracy. They are part of the pro-democracy party, and they want to make sure that they maintain the status quo, which, normally when we see uprisings and revolutions, they are trying to overthrow the status quo. Does the fact that they are trying to maintain their freedom give people in Hong Kong more strength and potentially a future victory?
I think that Beijing would love nothing more than to distract from its own bad behavior. The primary perpetrator of bad action has been Beijing, because while all of the Hong Kong protesters were going to the polls and average Hong Kong citizens were casting their vote and fulfilling their duty as voters, Beijing was undermining another branch of Hong Kong's government, the judiciary.
That's a really good point. A lot of people aren't talking about that, but explain why that's so important.
This is so important because Hong Kong's judiciary has been viewed as independent since the time that the Basic Law was instituted, and the judiciary is there to preserve the rule of law. When Hong Kongers originally took to the streets after that extradition bill was proposed, it was because they wanted to defend rule of law. And if you have Beijing threatening, like they are, with the current mask ban, which the Hong Kong High Court deemed unconstitutional, now Beijing is saying Hong Kong court doesn't have the authority to do that.
Wow.
The only one that has the authority are actors in Beijing. This is unacceptable, and this is an erosion of Hong Kong's ability to act independently and preserve the fundamental liberties that mean so much to the Hong Kong people.
And they know what they are fighting for. That is the difference. They know what they are fighting for, and they're going to fight like hell to keep it. They have to keep that freedom, because that is what goes hand in hand with their prosperity. And it's crazy, because as the foreign minister says, like, oh, they're just trying to upset the stability. No, that's what Beijing is doing. And it doesn't make any sense at all. It's like the only thing you can do is you look at this, and China is terrified. The mainland is terrified that this revolutionary vein is going to open up and spill over into the mainland.
I think that's a real fear. And I mean, the fact that you had close to 3 million Hong Kongers coming out to vote in what was a district council election. These are usually nothing burger elections. But Hong Kongers, one of the primary demands of the protesters is that of universal suffrage, the ability not just to vote in those district council elections, but to make it so that Chief Executive Carrie Lam can also be directly represented and voted for by the people, so that whoever is the next chief executive is elected by the Hong Kong people, not appointed in part by Beijing.
Amen. Olivia, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Well said. We love freedom. All right.